Hello, my name is Gregor Pupink. I am the director of the European Center for Law and Justice in Strasbourg. I have just presented a report that we have published on the financing of the UN experts. I have presented this report before the Committee of Coordination of the UN experts in Geneva. You will see in the following video this presentation and the following discussions. You will see that this report has caused a lot of debates within this committee. It is mainly the main subject, the main topic of discussion. Those who are attacking the report, the Irish lady is a former chair of the board of one of the Open Society foundations in charge of providing millions of dollars to feminist groups, whereas the other rapporteur is himself receiving such fundings for his mandate. It is the same for the NGOs who are speaking against the report, such as the Center for Reproductive Rights, which is a radical pro-abortion organization founded by Open Society and others. So, by the opposite, the NGOs who are defending our report are free from this influence and fundings from private funders. So, I invite you to look at this video to try to understand what is behind those speeches. It is a very important issue because it raises the question of the independence of the UN experts in the field of human rights. This report that I invite you to download, the financing of the UN experts, exposes how private funders and some governments finance experts, provide $11 million to them in the recent years out of any control. It exposes the networks of influence, how some experts can be influenced by foundations to draw out reports, to submit reports to the UN that promotes some ideas. So it's important. I invite you to read and to the report and to watch to this video. I thank you.
I welcome you to this exchange between special procedures mandate holders and civil society stakeholders.
I thank you very much for giving me the floor to the organization. I would like to reaffirm our full support to the special procedures. In the past months, the European Center for Law and Justice has been doing a research on the functioning and financing of the special procedures. And we arrived to the conclusion through publishing a report named The Financing of the UN Experts in the Special Procedures. Our conclusion that we arrived is that the proper functioning of the special procedures is endangered by a lack of financing, of institutional financing and proper support. We found that since 2015, the funds given directly through specific mandate holder has doubled. We found that there is an increasing proportion of the funds used to finance the activities of the special procedures that are out of the system of the United Nations, out of the control of the United Nations. Although the Special Rapporteur committed in 2015 to declare every year the funds received outside of the UN system, we have confronted those figures with other figures, and it clearly appears that the annual declarations made by the Special Rapporteurs lack consistency. They don't reflect all the funds given by state or private actors outside of the UN system. So often there are discrepancies between figures provided by the foundations, such as the Ford Foundation or the Open Society foundations, and provided by the UN. We have interviewed 28 special rapporteurs in the past months to discuss the issue of the functioning and financing of the procedures. And many of them were very keen to speak about this issue as they consider that the direct financing of special procedures outside of the UN control is a problem and can endanger their independence. Two of the experts use very strong words to describe this situation. So I want to just share this report with all of you. The name is The Financing of the UN Experts. And we again, I hope that this report, what it exposes, will contribute on one hand to clarify, to having more transparency on the financing of the activities of the special procedures, and on the other hand, will increase the support and the financial support from the governments and from the UN. I thank you, Mr. President.
Fionnuala Ní Amháin.
But I would like, Chair, with your permission, to just raise a point of order on the last intervention by the organisation, the ECLJ. I do so basically with some concern for a number of really important ethical and professional issues in the way in which that report was constructed. I should note that I was one of the special rapporteurs who was interviewed for that report and requested that my name be removed, precisely because the report failed to, in a professional manner, indicate through the interview what the underlying purpose of the work was. Those of us who work in academia know that these kind of ethical basic standards are required for any kind of work, and they're certainly demanded of us as special procedure mechanisms when we do ORs. I will also note that two professors of law, Martin Scheinen and Philip Alston, have provided a detailed and highly thorough account of the multiple inaccuracies in that report, both factual and procedural. And I'm just really concerned that that report also included spurious attacks on the integrity of my colleagues who undertake their work with extraordinary professionalism, due diligence, under really difficult circumstances. And so therefore, Chair, I just want to make sure that those of us who are listening to this conversation and aware of this report apply the standards of due diligence, professionalism, integrity to its reading and its content as we apply to special procedure mechanisms. And I think with grave concern, I say that I believe this report constitutes a spurious attack, actually, on the integrity of special procedures. It is not, therefore, one that I think any of us should be endorsing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fionnuala. And I also have Clément Voulet.
I want to also, following Fionnuala, just in 1 second to say that we are not against. I mean, we know we are the mandate holder. We can be criticized, but we want also, when we are criticized, to be this criticism to be fair. And I want also, following Fionnuala, to say that our friend from the European Center, just also to mention that I was mentioning this report without even coming to me, asking me any information. And I want also to make sure also that when we talk about the finance, we need also to keep this different to the personal attack. And this report trying to show that we, some people that work for other organizations, we are corrupted. And I want also to make sure that we understood here that none of the rapporteur received any cash on his pockets. And this report, I'm sorry, our colleagues, our friend from the European Center said that this aims to strengthen the special procedure, but it undermines quite a lot. And this report, as Fionnuala already showed it doesn't follow any methodological process that is fair for us. So thank you very much. And I hope that they understood that they will be able also to ensure that some states that will be using this report understand that this report contains issues that are not true. And I'm sorry to say that, and is not helpful for us as a special procedure mandate holder. Thank you.
Réseau International des Droits Humains.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I want to make reference in my statements, firstly, supporting the rapporteurs for particularly what the European Centre said. We know very clearly what that position is. But I also wanted to refer to the fact that the special rapporteurs have, on a number of occasions, working as well with the treaty bodies, including this in their reports, referred to the issue of corruption and its impact on human rights. There's a resolution 41.9 which was approved by the HRC on the 11th of July 2019, which I'd invite you to include in your mandates and reports regarding the impact of corruption on human rights. to ensure that these recommendations can be taken into account by the treaty bodies, among others.
The Center for Reproductive Rights, you have the floor.
The Center is really concerned about the opposition on issues related to sexual and reproductive health and rights, in particular defamation campaigns against special rapporteurs. We consider that it is extremely important to maintain the integrity of special procedures as a whole. The Center is monitoring the opposition and their position in relation to special procedures. The Center is also concerned about the backlash on sexual and reproductive health and rights and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on these rights. For example, sexual and reproductive health services were not considered as essential services in some cases. And in other states, restrictive laws were adopted considering issues related to sexual and reproductive health and rights as not medically necessary, and which had an adverse consequences on women and girls.
The International Commission of Jurists, you have the floor.
First of all, I wanted to extend the support and solidarity of the ICJ to special procedures to these undue attacks. The independence of special procedure and the professionality of special procedures is there and must be defended. The ICJ is going to be there to defend your independence and integrity. We know that this independence and integrity sometimes is put into question. This shouldn't be something, I think you prove every day with the work you do and with the reports you do, that you are independent mandate holders and you're the key and the stronghold of the Human Rights Protection Award of the Human Rights Council. And that should remain like that. There is a problem of resources. You should need more staff. And I think we will work and we will push that more resources are actually provided to special procedures to increase your work.
I would now like to offer the floor to the Eastern Horn of Africa Human Rights Defenders Project.
So we concur with the points on protecting your independence, on strengthening the self-regulation procedures, including the internal advisory procedure, the need to protect the integrity of the system, in particular by preventing attempts to modify the code of conduct or interfere in any other way.
Thank you kindly. CFAM would like to echo the concerns about the independence and impartiality of special procedures that were raised by the European Center for Law and Justice. We also deeply regret the Soviet-style reprisal on the report and the reactions from some of the special procedures, including Alston and Scheinin, who have had a hand in building this system. And their only response to the question raised about ethical concerns was to suppress anything and say and call engage in an exercise of mudslinging against the European Center for Law and Justice, which is wholly unjustified and it is not in keeping with the traditions of the best traditions of the human rights system. But once again, the European Center for Law and Justice merely raised an ethical concern, which I think is very fair and everybody should acknowledge. We are concerned with the integrity and the goodwill, not just of special procedures, but the human rights system overall. We cannot allow for even the appearance of impropriety. And so we urge member states and the special procedures to find a way forward that will restore credibility and avoid any appearance of impropriety, even where the impropriety may not be there. And certainly in this case, the dependence on private foundations of several special procedures is highly problematic. And I would also like to emphasize that the ethical concerns that were raised by the European Center for Law and Justice are also bolstered by the substantive output of the special procedures, in that the funding was traced from discrete funding to discrete projects advancing certain agendas. And this is highly problematic. The Center for Family and Human Rights works especially on the issues having to do with the right to life and the rights of the family. And we are highly troubled by much of the output of special procedures, including on issues such as abortion and the family, as well as other notions and ideas that are not internationally recognized. I would like to end simply saying history will not look kindly to those who exclude children in the womb from the right to life. But I would also like to, again, stress the point about the independence and impartiality of special procedures and the integrity of the human rights system and the goodwill of all the peoples of the world towards the United Nations human rights system. Interference by UN mechanisms in sensitive political debates that are outside the scope of the work of the human rights system threatens this integrity and goodwill and does not bode well for human rights. Thank you again for the floor.
Now to offer the floor to the International Lesbian and Gay Association. You have the floor.
I'd like to second some points that my colleagues mentioned, especially my colleague from the Center for Reproductive Rights, and concerns about defamation campaigns against special procedures and the importance of monitoring this opposition and maintain the integrity of the mandates.
Earth Justice, you have the floor.
I would like to join the what has already been said in this room about the support to the independence and the integrity of your mandates. Let's be very clear. The attacks, such as defamation and false allegation that we have been witnessing, are attacks on human rights themselves because they are attacking what is one of the jewels of the protection mechanisms of international human rights law. So it is true that there is always room for improvements, including in the financing, but that means first that we need to have more resources behind your mandate. So let me conclude by thanking you for fulfilling your mandate in a context of such great scarcity of resources. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson.
Institute for NGO Research.
Number one, on the ECLJ report, I understand the critique that has been made of the report, but at the same time, the report does raise some very important points about the financing and transparency within special procedures. And so we therefore urge the special procedures to address the issues raised in the report on the substance and not simply attack the messenger. And we also believe that there needs to be increased transparency on the reporting processes and working methods used by the special procedures. Why are certain topics selected as opposed to others? What are the standards used in terms of reporting? Do they conform with best practices for human rights reporting? So these are all things that the special procedures must take into account.
The Center for Health, Science and Law.
Finally, just to comment on some of the earlier discussion of this report from the European Center for Law and Justice. I hadn't read the report, but I did scan through it very quickly, and I confess, after seeing the recommendations and looking at the apparent quality of the report, I was surprised at the response to it. The recommendations are very tame. They're simply to be transparent about the source of funding for the special rapporteurs. And if it's not problematic, there should be no difficulty in reporting them. And in fact, having researched these kinds of things before, it looked to me like those data were available from publicly accessible sources from United States Security and Exchange Commission's data, and a lot of them are reported in the World Health Organization.
I very much appreciate it.
I'm happy to wrap up. So it's all to say that I think there's an impulse for harshly criticizing these things. And frankly, I noticed even during the course of today's meeting, initially there was an opportunity for participants to communicate to everyone in the room, but that functionality was turned off. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we didn't see a response from this organization to the criticisms of its report. And I think that's something that the Secretariat should reflect on. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Siobhan Mulaili.
And I would like to thank all those NGOs who have expressed their support for the integrity and independence of the human rights special procedures, including against the attacks, spurious attacks that we have seen in relation to the working and functionings of special procedures.
We have developed substantive experience as to what the scrutiny of sources of information and critical readings demands. And that scrutiny includes, of course, the scrutiny of quality and veracity and objectiveness of information that reaches us, including that information that is critical of our very actions. And I place in that several of the conversations that have been placed here today, including those relating to critical readings of the transparency of financial contributions to the system. I would like to make sure that it is clear that the financial accountabilities exist for contributions that are channeled through the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights through standard methods of operation in relation to the United Nations agencies, and that there is a system of self-regulation and self-discipline in relation to contributions that are outside of that framework. Again, critical readings of such activities are welcome as long as they comply with necessary frameworks of ethical functioning, peer review, and quality assurance that are a proof of their objectivity and their quality, their veracity, and their relevance.